grew up as an only child, but I found out about 15 years after that and stuff that I wasn't an only child, that there were 5 of us in the family, and they'd all been adopted to different families. I had this young lady call me, and she was a master sergeant in the Army. She called me and she said, "Hi, my name is Ann, and I'm your sister."
Well, after high school, I didn't have money for college, so I thought I have this friend that also joined with me at the same time. And we decided that we would just join the military to get away, because there was nothing to do if you didn't go to college. That's the way I felt anyway.
I was drafted, but I took another year. Yeah, so, after I did it, I hated it while I was here. I mean, after I had basic and AIT, I had AIT in Aberdeen, so, I was up there for about 6 months, and you could come home every week, so that's kind of spoiled me.
I finished school here. There wasn't a lot going on, so I left that morning and told them I wouldn't come back. Because when I went, they just took me the same day and just shipped me out.
I can remember as a child, I'd be out in the yard and looking up into the sky and seeing the planes cross over, and I kept saying, "Oh, that's the President of the United States, One day I'd like to meet the President of the United States."
I had gotten out of high school and had attended Maryland State Teachers College for a brief period of time, and then I enlisted in the Air Force and was lucky to have my first assignment at McGuire Air Force Base in New Jersey, close to home. But then after that, I was sent to Hawaii, which was my first time really away from the country, because I was born right outside and raised right outside the church here.
Adopted parents died, and I stayed with my aunt, and that was the reason why, when I got out of school, couldn't afford to go to college, so I joined the Navy. Went to a number of places. Started going part-time to school, community colleges and stuff like that, until I had almost 45 semester hours. And I applied for a program in the U.S. Navy called the In-Service Selection Education. They select 30 people from the entire Navy every year to let you go out and finish up your school. And I was one of the 30. So they let me go for 2 years to finish my undergraduate degree at George Washington University.
I had a hard time with segregation. I was in the segregated Army, and I had a hard time with that. I transported federal prisoners to Leavenworth, Kansas, at the federal prison. I also transported troops to Buzzards Bay, Massachusetts, to be loaded onto the ships out in the bay. And I broke and trained horses and men for the Army. And I buried people. I was head of ceremonials for the soldiers that were, some of them buried in Arlington, Quantico, Fort Myer, down in 301. But and I was with the federal government as a bomb reconnaissance agent, and I had 32 and a half years with government service.
I was selected out of a group of people of 12 to come back to Washington, D.C. to guard this equipment. We didn't know what the equipment was, but we kind of figured that it had to be something to do with the President of the United States. And I was one of the 12 that was selected to come. Turns out it was the helicopters that you see the President of the United States ride in now. That was my job, was to protect that helicopter. That's what I came back to do, and I was stationed at Fort Belvoir.
After I finished the training, went to Germany. And the cold, I got tired of the cold. And plus, when I went, you went on a ship. You spend 9 days on the ship, and the water's rough. and it come up and it come down. You could hear the rudders turning, and then they get so bad the water, you couldn't go outside. They'd lock it up, you know, and it was horrible. And then people get getting seasick, and it was like I said, you don't want to be on the bottom bed because you had a bag. Everybody had a bag with everywhere you went, you had a bag with a plastic liner, because people, you know, because being that long on the water. And when I got off that water, 9 days on the water, I was ready to get off on some dry ground. But then I spent 36 months in Germany. I said, I got to get away from this infantry. And it's outside crawling on the ground. So then I came back and went to Aberdeen Proving Grounds. I went to welding school there, and that's where I met my wife.
I met my husband at Aberdeen Proving Ground, so that was a good thing, because I know the Lord had to ordain us to be together for 49 years. So I really think that's where I was supposed to be. And I attended college during the time we were married, and we have one child, one son.
Then we left Kentucky. My wife was pregnant with a son, and I had to go to Vietnam. Now, I went in first part, I think it was in May, May. The baby was born in May, but they weren't gonna give me they wouldn't give me no more time. So I was there, they just called me and told me that everything was all right, but it was a lot on her by herself. But she had moved back to Pittsburgh with her mother, so that made things better. And my son, and when I came back to Vietnam, I took a break because just a year, you know, you need to take a stress break really, because your reactions get so, you know, least sound I was up. She knew I had changed because I wasn't used to me doing some of the things I was doing, you know. Anytime at least a little noise, even when I was never really sleep, I was on it, because you know, reflexes change from the war, you know. It took a while for things to really adjust. And then I went back in. I stayed about 30 months. I went back in, and then got promoted to E8. But we was back at Aberdeen again, which was good. And then we left Aberdeen, and we had been there so long. And I said, well, we're getting close to this mark. And they sent us to Hawaii. We spent the last 2 years in Hawaii.
I did 22 years on active duty. I did 2 tours in Vietnam. When I got back from my first tour, I'd only done 10 months in Vietnam. So 24 hours later, I was back in Vietnam again for another 7 to 8 months, because I hadn't done a full 13 months the first time. So yeah, yep. So I did a total of 18 months in Vietnam, with the exception of one day that we got to come back. We flew back, and I had to go back the next day.
I was allowed to stay on the Military Police Corps, go anywhere in the world that I wanted to go. I chose to stay in Washington, D.C. because my wife was pregnant with our first child. And we stayed there for a while, and I was assigned to a special detail at Fort Myers with the 561st Military Police Corps. I had special duty, only had to work Monday through Friday, day shift. I stayed there for the end of 3 years.
Then I left Aberdeen, and I went to Colorado, Fort Carson. Then I was out there, I guess, 4 or 5 months, 6 months. Then I was shipped to Germany. And after I got overseas, I was okay because I knew I couldn't get back home. So, but I did different countries over there, you know, and that was my job. And I enjoyed it. I feel every man and woman should experience that life, because it will change you, make you different, you know, to respect life, you know.
When Pearl Harbor hit, I was at the movies, and they cut the movies off at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and told us to report back to your barracks double time, nobody in, nobody out. And they had state troopers and everybody, the police, down trying to find officers, telling them to report back to the barracks. And that was Pearl Harbor. And I didn't even know where Pearl Harbor was.
I went over and joined what they call TUSAB, the United States Army Band. We went over there and I joined them, and that's when I had an opportunity. I had a very high level clearance that allowed me to go to the White House and be around the President of the United States. When Jimmy Carter, when he lit the first Christmas tree, it was amazing. He lit the tree, turned around and walked over to the line, and guess who hand he shook? I got to meet the President of the United States.
The military, in a way, sometimes it doesn't drive you away from the church, but because you move so much. I moved 14 times in the 26 years I was in the military, and a lot of that time, majority of that time was spent overseas, so there wasn't always a place where you could connect.
And I went to church, but not every Sunday. At home, I was brought up in church, and my mother kept the kids in church.
When things happen, while I was in Vietnam, things happen, and you didn't get hurt, then, because we've been close, and I like from here to the wall, and as soon as I left, the round went off, and the guys were in the bunker. Lucky they were up on top. It blew them off. It didn't hurt them. But I just crossed the road, and it came in a little hole about this big. They put a rocket in the hole, so I was blessed. I knew I was blessed. It wasn't my idea, but I was just I had moved at the right time. Because a few minutes later, it had been, So you know when you've been blessed. And now all the studying we do now, and the more you study, the more you learn, the more you understand. So we work a lot together now. We do it. Most things we do, we try to do together. We both sing in the choirs, the Bible studies. We're pretty active in the things we do.
Oh, my husband is from White Rock, and this is his home church. So I'm here with him, and I always enjoy coming back to his hometown.
I come here every Sunday, and at White Rock church, and I enjoy the service here.
Well, the old folks used to run it better. I mean, I used to always talk to old people, older than I. And, it's a lot of wisdom from the old people. You learn a lot, But they didn't really just improve this church because it made it bigger and everything, So, but I'm happy. I come, like I said, I used to come here. I had to come when I was little, so I just come back, I stayed away from church for a while, then I came back, 5, 6, 7 years ago, I'm happy.
I joined it because, he's one of the most fantastic pastors I think I've ever had in my life. I had a total knee replacement back in May, and while I had the surgery, he came by to visit me. He called me at the hospital. We called at home and stuff, and he talked to me and stuff, and I've never had a pastor in my entire existence that's ever done that. And the people here, people came by to see me in the hospital, welcomed me back, and I was like a brand new person here in the congregation at that point, But it was just a wonderful community experience that I've had, and it's been that way ever since I've been with these folks. So I've enjoyed being here, truly.
Oh yeah, management. When you're by yourself, you learn to manage that money, and then once you learn, you can pass that on because a lot of people can't manage the money. I can manage mine, and my wife is excellent with managing the money. That's one thing on, because my wife, she go on my wallet, if it ain't nothing in there, she put it in there. I said, well, I don't eat but a few dollars, because at the time I was working. I was only working about 10 miles from the house, 15 miles. I said, I don't need nothing. She said, well, you don't need to go with nothing. But that's one thing, when it comes to financial management, my wife got it. And that's what I learned in the military. When I was single, you wasn't making about $80 a whole month, and you can manage, I can manage that. Then the Army pay system changed to twice a month. I stayed at once a month because I can manage mine for the whole month already. I didn't need to go to the middle of the month. And right now, retired, I go same thing. Once a month, just let it go. I ain't need no half of it because I've learned to manage it with fair help.
And I teach at Howard. You know, I have thousands of students, you know, and you try to impart a lot of that on them because, you know, that's my job, is to make sure that they're educated when they walk in the street and to make them financially literate. That's a big task that I've taken on many years ago and stuff. We have a lot of kids that walk out of here and stuff that have no idea on what's happening financially. A lot of people just assume that once they graduate from college, it's going to happen by osmosis or something, you know. I'll know exactly what to do and how to handle my financial affairs. It didn't work like that with most folks. We try to do that.
Well, after military, I went into civil service. So I brought what I had learned in the military, and it enabled me to get a good job. So I guess that's what I took from the military, and how to really deal with people.
Discipline, respect for people. You know, you can't live in this world alone. So, I feel everybody should have done that. You know, so.
A lot of the message that we can give to the kids is to let them know that we all stand on someone else's shoulders, and that a lot of people have gone through hard times and have been able to still achieve something. And if you teach them history, they will learn that there are people that came way before you that went through hard times and were still successful. And we try to show them that. You know, I was born here dirt poor, 12 kids in our family. My mom was a teacher, but never got an opportunity to really teach because she had 12 kids. And Dad did everything he could. May he rest in peace, being a farmer and working on construction sites when he was able to. But he always taught us how to survive. From the time we were 8 or 9 years old, we were already working. And we knew that he was giving us a good work ethic and that eventually would pay off for us. And so it did. Out of the 12 kids, most of us did very well, you know, not in a whole lot of trouble or anything. And his work ethic just keeps me going even to today. And matter of fact, I think you guys interviewed my dad years ago, and I can still pull it up on the internet, yeah, and see. Yeah.